if you just think about it from a pure theory perspective. What I mean is, I don't think you should invest directly in stocks, especially if you're not a professional investor, but you should have some significant allocation to FDs. So I kind of discovered investing in college. There's this really famous investor called Benjamin Graham, who's written what I think should be taught in schools. It's a book called The Intelligent Investor. It's inspired a lot of people, including Buffett. So I read that in college because I saw it mentioned somewhere, and that kind of really sort of got me going. So I decided back then that I want to do something in the investing space. That's where I want to be, even though I was an engineer. But thankfully, I got my first job was with an investment bank, with Credit Suisse. And then, from there, I was sort of a little bit of right place, right time. I got this awesome opportunity to work in New York for many years. So, so my interests and my hobbies are all investing related because that's what I love doing. So I think one cardinal rule that I feel in general people should follow is that they should not try to ape someone else's investing portfolio or style, because ultimately investing is a lot about your own personality. If your portfolio and what your personality is in dissonance, it will always lead to a lot of emotional discomfort for you. If you just think about it from a pure theory perspective. What I mean is, I don't think you should invest directly in stocks, especially if you're not a professional investor, but you should have some significant allocation to FDs. Having said that, for most people who are not professional investors, having all your money in equities is also not a good idea. I think FDs is a very strong and stable way for you to compound your money. Similarly, I think other asset classes like gold, I think gold serves as a great inverse sort of asset class to equity. I think you should have some allocation to gold as well. And of course, real estate, traditionally Indians generally have some house in their family. So I think real estate, most of us are covered. So I'm not a huge fan of investing quote unquote in real estate. But yeah, that's another asset class for sure. And then there are alternative asset classes that have come up now in the last few years. There's of course crypto. There is more riskier forms of debt, right? There are people who are doing peer-to-peer lending. There are people who are doing debt, other collateralized debt instruments. So there are startups doing that, and of course those are also valid areas. But you should have small allocations towards those things because they are ultimately riskier. So yeah, I think 20s. I think I would say the biggest thing for you to remember is don't get enamored by people making very high returns in, let's say, crypto or equity, because that's when it happens. And I understand that whatever I invest now, it'll compound for the next 40-50 years, right? Till I retire. So you should think about it from that perspective. Don't think about it from the next 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months perspective. Have that view that the money that I'm investing now is going to compound for the next 40 years. So I should put it in places where I think this will last for the next 40 years. In 30s, I think that's the time when stuff like taking insurance, like having the right insurance policies in place, whether it's health insurance, life insurance. First of all, avoid taking this debt if possible. And if you have the debt, pay it off first before you invest somewhere else, right? So that's, I think in your 30s, that's the most important advice. And in the 40s, of course, I think fall back on instruments like fixed deposits and debt instruments, which are safer and still give you a reasonable rate of return, because again, you don't have many years left of earning potential left, right? And you need to protect the corpus you already have. So yeah, those would be the buckets. So first of all, I think don't seek excitement from an investment portfolio. Most of your money has to be in legitimate, bona fide, safe places, right? And FDs is a definite example of that, right? FDs are protected by multiple factors, right? First of all, they're generally issued by banks or large NBFCs, right, which are very well capitalized. They are regulated by the RBI, so there's a safety layer in there. And then on top of that, there is insurance, right? Up to a certain amount of money, your FD deposits are insured by the government. When interest rates are at their peak, FDs are offering very, very attractive interest rates, right? There is no reason why you should not be invested in FDs. So, that's my view. I think, as I said, in conclusion, FDs have to be the foundation on which your portfolio is built. So I'll preface this by saying that I consider myself a professional investor, right? I've done this for my entire career. So my allocation will be a little more concentrated and look a little different from what is typical for people who are not in this field. So I have a reasonably large allocation towards equities. I would say 80 to 90% of my wealth is in equities. Within that, because I spent a large amount of time in the US, about half of that is probably in US stocks and US investments, and the other half is in India investments. Within the India investments, there's a split. Again, consider myself a professional investor, so I have a large allocation towards small and mid-cap stocks that I have picked myself, that I have done the research on, and I feel comfortable holding for a very long time, probably 10, 20, 30 years. A significant portion invested in ETFs. So because ETFs are low-cost instruments and they mimic an index, so again, we have a large portion invested in ETFs that mimic the large cap index like a Nifty, a mid-cap index, a small-cap index. So that's how my investment portfolio is split, and the remaining 20% is in FDs, right? FDs or other debt funds, liquid funds, which are extremely safe, that I can access quickly. You need some portion of a portfolio that will not move up and down with the market, which will stay stable, so that if you need funds in a crunch or in an emergency, you can access it.